There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over the heart when something is about to shift in your life. It is not the silence of emptiness or the stillness of waiting without hope. It is the quiet that comes before a door opens, before a voice speaks, before someone reaches out their hand and says, "I am ready now." And if you are watching this today, if something in you was drawn to press play on this message, I want you to consider that perhaps you are already standing in that quiet space. Perhaps your spirit already senses what your mind has not yet caught up to. There are moments in life when we feel forgotten by love, overlooked by the people we hoped would choose us, passed by as though our presence did not matter. And I know that feeling can settle deep into the bones and make a home there if we are not careful. But what I want to speak to you about today is not the ache of being unseen. I want to speak to you about what happens when God begins to move in the heart of another person. Slowly, deliberately, in ways that neither of you can fully understand yet. Because there are things happening right now that you cannot see. There are conversations taking place in the heart of someone you may or may not have met yet. There are decisions being weighed, fears being faced, and a kind of courage being gathered that has everything to do with you. And I say this not as a prophet who can see the future, but as someone who has lived long enough to recognize the signs of a season changing. The scripture says that there is a time for everything under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them together. And perhaps you have been living in a time of scattering for so long that you forgot gathering was even possible. Perhaps the relationships that came before left you with more questions than answers, more wounds than memories worth keeping. And that is understandable. That is the honest truth of what it means to love in a world where people are still learning how to be whole. But I want to encourage you today to consider that your past does not define the quality of what is coming. The people who could not stay were never meant to be the ones who remained. And sometimes, God allows us to walk through seasons of loneliness, not to punish us, but to prepare us for a connection that requires a version of ourselves we had not yet become. Think about that for a moment. What if the waiting was never about being good enough for someone else, but about becoming whole enough to receive what God has been preparing? What if the silence was not rejection, but protection? What if every closed door was actually a redirection towards something your heart was not ready to hold before now? I have seen this happen more times than I can count. I have watched people who believed they would never be chosen suddenly find themselves standing in the presence of someone who sees them, truly sees them, for the first time. And the interesting thing is, it rarely happens the way we expect. It does not arrive with fanfare or dramatic declarations. It comes quietly, almost gently, like the first light of morning slipping through the curtains before you realize the night is over. And that is what I want you to hold on to today. Not an anxious expectation, not a desperate hope that something must happen soon, but a quiet confidence that God has not forgotten the desires of your heart, because He has not. That the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And if you have ever felt crushed by disappointment, if you have ever wondered whether love was simply not meant for you, I want you to know that closeness is not the same as absence. God being near to your pain does not mean He has abandoned your joy. It means He is working in the very places where you feel most vulnerable, most exposed, most in need of healing. And here is something I have come to understand about healing. It does not only prepare you to receive love, it also makes you visible to the right kind of love. There is a spiritual principle at work here that goes beyond what we can see with our eyes. When you begin to heal, when you begin to walk in your identity as someone beloved by God, when you stop carrying the weight of other people's inability to see your worth, something shifts in the atmosphere around your life. People notice. Not everyone, but the right ones. the ones who have been doing their own healing, their own growing, their own wrestling with God in the quiet hours of the night. And one of those people, perhaps someone you already know, perhaps someone you have yet to meet, is right now taking steps that will lead them closer to you. Not because I have some special knowledge of your future, but because this is how God works. He moves in hearts. He softens what was hard. He gives courage where there was fear. He plants seeds of intention in people who once thought they could never risk loving someone again. And if He is doing that work in your heart right now, it is reasonable to believe He is doing the same work in the heart of another. I want to pause here and speak to something that might be stirring in you. Maybe you are listening to this and a face came to mind. Someone from your past, someone you lost touch with, someone who walked away before either of you was ready for what you could have become together. Or maybe you are thinking of no one at all. Maybe you are simply tired. Tired of hoping, tired of waiting, tired of wondering if your turn will ever come. Both of those places are valid. Both of those places are seen by God, and neither of those places disqualifies you from what is ahead. If someone came to mind, I am not here to tell you that means they are definitely coming back. I am not here to make promises about outcomes that only God can know. But I will say this: the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget. And if you are being led to hold someone gently in prayer, even from a distance, there is often a reason for that. Not always the reason we want, but a reason worth trusting nonetheless. And if no one came to mind, if you feel like you are standing in an open field with nothing but sky above you and uncertainty ahead, that is not a sign of abandonment. That is a sign of possibility. That is God saying, I am not limited to your past. I am not confined to the people you have already known. I can bring someone new into your life who fits the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. And becoming is such an important word here, because none of us are finished. None of us have arrived at the final version of who we are meant to be. We are all in the middle of a story that is still being written, still unfolding, still revealing new chapters that we could not have imagined even a year ago. In the past year, if you have changed, if you have shed old patterns and picked up new wisdom, then the kind of love that is meant for you has also shifted. It has risen to meet the person you are now. And that is good news. That is the kind of news that should bring a quiet peace to your spirit, not an anxious urgency. Because urgency is not the language of faith. Faith speaks in patience. Faith says, I trust the timing, even when I do not understand the delay. Faith says, I will prepare my heart while I wait, knowing that what is coming is worth the preparation. And you are preparing, whether you realize it or not. Every time you choose to forgive instead of hold a grudge, you are preparing. Every time you choose to believe the best about yourself instead of agreeing with old shame, you are preparing. Every time you sit in the presence of God and let Him speak truth over your identity, you are preparing the soil of your heart for something beautiful to grow. The book of Isaiah speaks of God doing a new thing, springing it forth, making a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert. And I love that imagery, because it acknowledges the reality of where we often find ourselves. The wilderness is real. The desert seasons of the heart are real. But so is God's ability to bring water where there was none, to bring life where everything felt dry and dead. And if you have been walking through a wilderness season when it comes to love and connection, I want you to know that streams are possible. Not because you have earned them, not because you have figured out some secret formula, but because that is who God is. He is the one who brings life, and He does not withhold that life from His children because they have not suffered enough, or waited long enough, or proved themselves worthy enough. He gives because He loves, and He loves you. I say that not as a generic spiritual platitude, but as a truth that deserves to sink deeply into your understanding. God loves you specifically, not humanity in general, not believers as a category, but you, the person watching this right now, with your particular history and your particular wounds and your particular hopes that you are almost afraid to speak out loud because they feel too fragile to expose. He sees all of that. He holds all of that, and He is working on your behalf in ways that you cannot perceive. There is a verse in the book of Romans that speaks about how all things work together for good for those who love God, for those who are called according to His purpose. And I have wrestled with that verse over the years, because sometimes the things we walk through do not feel like they are working toward anything good. They just feel painful. They just feel like loss. But the working together happens over time. It happens in the accumulation of experiences that shape us, refine us, prepare us for moments of connection and purpose that we could not have handled before. And that is what I want you to see today. The pain you have walked through was not wasted. The waiting you have endured has not been without purpose. Every tear, every disappointment, every night when you wondered if anyone would ever truly know and love the real you, all of it has been shaping you for something. And I believe that something is close. Not because I have a calendar with a date circled, but because I have seen this pattern before. The deepest preparation often happens right before the breakthrough. The most profound healing often occurs just before the relationship arrives that will require that healing. And if you have been experiencing deep work in your spirit lately, if God has been dealing with you about things you thought were settled, if old memories have been surfacing for healing, and old lies have been exposed for what they are, pay attention to that. That is not random. That is preparation. And it suggests that something is approaching that will need the healthier, freer, more whole version of you to receive it well. I want to speak now to those who are afraid, because fear is a real thing, and it does not help to pretend otherwise. Some of you have been so hurt by past relationships that the idea of someone taking a step toward you actually creates anxiety rather than joy. You wonder if you can trust it. You wonder if they will stay. You wonder if you will mess it up somehow, or if they will turn out to be different than they seemed. And all of those fears are understandable. They are the product of experience, and experience is a powerful teacher. But I want to gently remind you that fear and wisdom are not the same thing. Wisdom says be discerning. Fear says be closed. Wisdom says pay attention to patterns, and trust is earned over time. Fear says do not let anyone in, because everyone will eventually hurt you. And the difference between those two voices matters immensely. Because if you listen only to fear, you will build walls so high that even the right person cannot reach you. And that would be a tragedy. Not because being single is a tragedy. Not. There is nothing wrong with being complete on your own. And anyone who tells you otherwise has misunderstood the message. But if your heart genuinely desires partnership, if there is a real longing in you for someone to walk beside you through this life, then walls of fear will only keep you from what you are asking for. So I want to encourage you to do the work. Bring those fears to God. Name them honestly. Tell Him exactly what you are afraid of, and ask Him to help you distinguish between the wisdom that protects and the fear that imprisons. He is faithful to answer that prayer. He does not leave us to figure out our emotions on our own. And as you bring those fears into the light, something interesting happens. They begin to lose their power. Fear thrives in darkness, in secrecy, in the corners of our minds where we do not allow anyone else to look. But when you expose it to the light of God's presence, when you speak it out loud and acknowledge its existence, it begins to shrink. It does not disappear overnight, but it shrinks. And in its place grows something new. Courage, hope, a willingness to remain open, even when openness feels risky. And that openness is important, because the person who is taking steps toward you needs to find someone willing to receive them. Not someone perfect, not someone who has all the answers, but someone whose heart is available, whose spirit is accessible, whose life has room for another person to enter and stay. And making that room is part of your work right now. Not frantically rearranging your life in expectation of someone arriving, but gently clearing the space you have been holding on to out of habit. Clearing away the bitterness that takes up more room than it deserves. Clearing away the self-doubt that convinces you no one would actually choose you. All of that clearing is sacred work. It is the work of preparation, and it matters. I want to mention something about recognizing when God is moving in your life versus when you are trying to force something to happen. Because there is a difference, and learning to discern that difference will save you a lot of heartache. When God is moving, there is peace. Not always excitement, not always certainty, but peace. A quiet knowing that this is the direction you are supposed to go. When you are forcing something, there is anxiety. There is a need to control outcomes, to manage impressions, to make things work that keep falling apart. We have all experienced both of those at different times. But as you move forward, pay attention to where the peace is. Follow the peace. If a connection brings consistent chaos, if it requires you to abandon your values or diminish your worth, if it leaves you more anxious than you were before, that is information. That is not God's movement. That is something else. But if a connection brings peace, if it makes you feel more like yourself rather than less, if it encourages your growth and calls out the best in you, pay attention. Even if it is unexpected, even if it does not look like what you imagined. Because God is not obligated to work within our expectations. He is obligated to work for our good. And sometimes our good looks different than we thought it would. Sometimes the person who is right for us does not fit the picture we had in our minds. Sometimes they come from a different background, have a different style, hold different interests than we assumed our partner would have. And that is okay. Because compatibility is not about similarity. It is about complement. It is about two people whose differences serve each other, rather than compete with each other. It is about finding someone who strengthens where you are weak, and appreciates where you are strong. And that kind of person might surprise you. I want to encourage you today to hold your expectations loosely. Not to lower your standards, never that. Standards are important. Knowing what you will and will not accept is a sign of self-respect and wisdom. But expectations about appearance, about timing, about how the story will unfold, those can be held more loosely. He writes stories we could never imagine, brings connections we never saw coming, and often delivers his best gifts in packaging we would not have chosen ourselves. So stay open, stay curious, stay willing to be surprised by how love shows up in your life. If you have been blessed by this message so far, if something has resonated with your spirit in a way that feels meaningful, I want to invite you to take a moment and subscribe to this channel. Not because you have to, not because clicking a button proves anything about your faith, but simply because we are building a community here of people who are seeking to grow, to heal, to walk with God through every season of life. And if that sounds like something you want to be part of, you are welcome here. But even if you choose not to, even if you simply watch and move on, I want you to know that this message was for you. Either way, your presence here matters, regardless of any action you take or do not take. Now I want to return to the theme that has been weaving through this entire message. The idea that someone is taking a step. That somewhere someone is gathering the courage to move toward you. And I want to be clear about what that might look like. because I think our imaginations sometimes leap to the dramatic. We picture grand gestures, sweeping declarations, moments that belong in movies rather than real life. But the truth is, most significant steps are quiet. They happen in ordinary moments. A decision to reach out after months of silence, a choice to be more vulnerable than usual, an admission of feelings that had been held back for too long, a willingness to try again after failure, to risk rejection for the chance at connection. These are the steps that matter. Not because they are impressive, but because they are costly. Every genuine step toward another person costs something. It costs pride. It costs the safety of staying closed. It costs the comfort of self-protection. And when someone is willing to pay that cost for you, that is significant. That is worth paying attention to. So as you move forward from this moment, I want to encourage you to be attentive. Not obsessive, not scanning every interaction for hidden meaning, but simply open. Open to recognizing when someone is making an effort, even a small one. Open to receiving what is being offered, rather than dismissing it as not enough. Because sometimes we are so focused on the grand gesture we have imagined that we miss the small, genuine steps that are actually what count. Happening. And those small steps are often how real love begins. Not with fireworks, but with consistency. Not with perfection, but with effort. Not with someone who has it all figured out, but with someone who is willing to figure it out with you. That kind of love is worth waiting for. That kind of love is worth staying open for. And I believe that kind of love is possible for you. Not guaranteed in a specific timeline, not promised by a certain date, but genuinely possible. Because God is good, and He has not forgotten you. The book of Jeremiah tells us that God knows the plans He has for us. Plans to prosper and not to harm. Plans to give hope and a future. And while that verse is often quoted in contexts that strip away its original meaning, the heart of it remains true. God is not working against you. He is not holding back good things to teach you a lesson or to see how long you can endure. He is working in time, through time, with the patience that only eternal perspective allows. And that means your future is not something to fear. It is something to walk toward with hope. Not naive hope that ignores reality, but grounded hope that acknowledges both the pain of the past and the possibility of the future. That kind of hope is a gift. It is not something we manufacture on our own. It is something the Holy Spirit plants in us as we stay connected to the source of all hope. So if your hope has been wavering lately, if you have felt more doubt than faith, that is okay. You do not have to be perfectly hopeful to be loved by God. You do not have to have your faith completely together to deserve good things. You just have to be willing. Willing to receive. Willing to stay open. Willing to trust even when trusting feels difficult. And I believe you have that willingness in you. I believe it because you are still here. You are still watching. You are still seeking. And that seeking, that persistent orientation toward hope, is itself a sign of faith. It is not a finished product. It is a beginning. And beginnings are enough. God can work with beginnings. He is not waiting for the final version. You to arrive at some perfect destination of faith before He moves on your behalf. He is moving now, in the midst of your questions, in the middle of your uncertainty, while you are still finding your way. That is the God we serve, a God who meets us where we are, rather than waiting for us to get where He is. And He is meeting you right now, in this moment, in this message, in the quiet stirring of your heart that suggested you should watch this in the first place. Pay attention to that stirring. It is not random. It is not coincidence. It is the gentle voice of a God who loves you specifically and is working all things together for your good. As I bring this message to a close, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. First, be patient with yourself. Healing takes time. Become the kind of person who can receive healthy love takes time. Do not rush yourself, and do not beat yourself up for not being further along than you are. You are exactly where you need to be. Second, be patient with God. His timing is not our timing, and what feels like delay to us is often preparation from His perspective. Trust that He sees the bigger picture, even when you cannot. Trust that His slowness is not neglect, but care. Third, be patient with others. If someone is taking a step toward you, remember that they are also on their own journey of growth and healing. They may not do everything perfectly. They may stumble. They may need grace. Offer that grace freely, the same way you would want it offered to you. And finally, hold on to hope. Not desperate hope, but confident hope. Hope. Not anxious hope, but the quiet, steady hope that comes from knowing you are loved by the Creator of the universe, and that He has good things in store for you. That hope will carry you through whatever comes next. It will sustain you in the waiting. It will prepare you for the receiving, and it will remain with you long after this message ends. I am grateful that you spent this time with me today. I do not take it lightly that you chose to watch, to listen, to consider these words. And I pray that something spoken here has taken root in your heart in a way that will bear fruit in the days and weeks to come. If this message has blessed you, I would encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Not because I need the numbers, but because there are people in your life who are walking through similar seasons. Sometimes, the right word at the right time can change everything. But whatever you do, know that you are loved. Know that you are seen. Know that your waiting is not in vain, and that your heart is not too broken for God to use and heal. He is doing a new thing in you. He is preparing something beautiful. And soon, perhaps sooner than you realize, you will look back on this season and understand why it had to happen the way it did. Until then, walk in peace. Walk in faith. Walk in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are held by hands that will never let you go. God bless you, and may you carry the truth of His love with you wherever this day takes you.